This man tried to kill my cousin, Bruce. I'm not proud of this.
Oh, God.
Hello. No! He doesn't mean that.
You may have noticed that the VFX for the new She-Hulk show are disturbingly uncanny. They aren't horrible, but they also aren't up to the usual standard people expect, especially from a Marvel Studios production. By the looks of it, I would say that the VFX artists didn't have enough money or time to polish the final product. However, this show has been in the works for a while, so it doesn't make much sense that Marvel Studios wouldn't allot the necessary time, and it's Disney, so they're not strapped for cash. You'd think they'd have this thing looking good because it's going to be a digital character on screen for at least half the show, but no. We can see what it looks like, and...
Jesus, what the hell, man?
Still in control, no overwhelming feelings of rage.
No, a normal amount of rage!
yeah. Hey, don't blame me. I didn't render the fucking thing. So why are the VFX for the She-Hulk show so iffy? An article in Vulture has some answers. Chris Lee interviewed an anonymous person claiming to be a VFX artist who's worked on Marvel shows. Without knowing who this person is, it's tough to assume everything they say is true. However, much of what's in the article matches what I know about the VFX industry and why some shows end up with bad or lackluster VFX. The person, who I'll name Nemo, starts by mentioning the competitive nature of the VFX world. Effects houses compete for blockbuster jobs, especially ones for Marvel, often underbidding each other in order to land a position. That immediately creates a problem because the less money you have, the fewer people you can staff to work on a project. Neo says this about the situation, quote, "Where I would usually have a team of 10 VFX artists on a non-Marvel movie, on one Marvel movie, I got 2, including myself. So every person is doing more work than they need to." It's been a while since I heard something like that happening. I can't imagine how 2 people can manage a handful of shots by themselves, given how complex many of them are, let alone an entire film. I can't say that it hasn't happened, it's just hard to believe. I would buy that it might be 4 or 5 people though, possibly just handed a shot per person, and I'm not talking about them handling a character, but every element that needs to be placed, animated, and rendered. That would not surprise me. What also doesn't surprise me is Nemo's claim that Marvel constantly makes changes to the VFX without ever considering moving the release dates to make room for the VFX artists to do their jobs. Release dates are often set months or years in advance, and Disney has built several things around that business model, so they're not going to budge. This tight turnaround obviously creates a problem for the effects houses, which is made worse by Marvel nitpicking the effects to death, or as the artists call it, getting pixel fucked. Quote, "That's a term that we use in the industry when the client will nitpick over every little pixel, even if you never notice it. The client might say, 'This is not exactly what I want,' and you keep working at it. But they have no idea what they want. So they'll be like, 'Can you just try this? Can you just try that?' They'll want you to change an entire setting, an entire environment, pretty late in the movie. I've been through this. It's one of the reasons I stopped freelancing. It's absolutely irritating to have someone demanding constant changes to the work, especially things they assume are little changes that require you to completely redo the thing. They either don't know or don't care about the amount of time and effort that goes into creating these effects. Most of this stuff takes hours to weeks to do, so scrapping it isn't a good option, not if you want it to look good. It's much worse though when you're dealing with someone with no experience working with VFX. Nemo points out that many of the directors Marvel hires are indie directors with no VFX experience, and often no ability to visualize the final shot without detailed reference. So what do you think Marvel demands in that situation? Well, quote, "So Marvel starts asking for what we call final renders. As we're working through a movie, we'll send work-in-progress images that are not pretty but show where we're at. Marvel often asks for them to be delivered at a much higher quality very early on, and that takes a lot of time. It's just total madness. Why would you do this?" For those who don't understand, Marvel is basically asking for this as a test footage. That's not what you would do. The test footage would look like this. It's not meant to be complete. It's meant to give a sense of where things are in the shot. Throughout post-production, the VFX team will show progress reels of shots they've completed each step, and these would be reviewed by the director to make changes. Doing it this way allows for changes to be made before certain sections are locked off and handed off to another department. The last thing anyone wants to do, especially the VFX artists, is to make major changes once the shot is animated, lit, and rendered. That's hours of work and tens of thousands of dollars just thrown away. That this is Marvel Studios' method is insane. Why wouldn't you just hire directors who work with VFX? Of course, the problems don't end there. According to Nemo, the director of photography isn't involved in post-production, so you have the VFX team creating and framing completely digital scenes in ways that don't match the rest of the film, like the final fight from Black Panther. I'm surprised by that because even if the DP isn't involved, the director should still be involved and should know what shots they want. It's like Marvel Studios is trying to fuck themselves. No rational person works this way, but this is a result of the tight control Marvel Studios have put on their films. They're not really hiring directors and writers to come up with the stories anymore. They're just hiring these folks to make the movie Marvel already planned. The directors who would know how to handle VFX probably don't want to deal with that level of studio control, which leaves those who don't know or don't care about it left to make the movies, often with no experience of making this kind of effects-heavy film. Nemo has some suggestions on how to fix the problem. Quote, Marvel needs to train its directors on working with visual effects and have a better vision out of the gate. The studio needs to hold its directors' feet to the fire to more commit to what they want. The other thing is unionization. There's a growing movement to do that because it would help make sure that the VFX houses can't take bids without having to consider what the impacts would be. Because a lot of the time, it's like you get to work on a Marvel show and you'll do that work for cheaper just because it's cool. I'm shocked the effects houses haven't formed a union or guild yet, considering how many guilds and unions are in Hollywood. Obviously, all effects houses won't join, and likely some movie studios won't want to deal with another union. Those non-union effects houses might be able to get more work by underbidding the union houses. However, that doesn't get rid of the studio's ability to basically bully the effects houses into doing more work for less pay, under the threat of a blacklist should they refuse or fail. As for Marvel changing its ways, I doubt that'll happen anytime soon. Usually studios wait until their movies don't sell to switch things up, and by then, it's too late. Marvel Studios seems happy to hire directors to basically be the person on set who does what the higher-ups want, not anyone with a vision of their own. Marvel has a formula and they're sticking to it, and hiring people who will do as they're told. That had already chafed the hardcore MCU fans who'd already noticed this trend, and now it's starting to bother the normies. When they're picking up that the Marvel films are basically the same film with different casts, you've got a problem. The one saving grace would be if the films and shows look nice, but as we can see...
No, the Book of American Laws.
Again, bitch, it wasn't me. Marvel fucked you. Don't invert stuff. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.